We've spent over 10 years on air, shaping a generation of action motorsports, and now we're changing the game again. The best motorsports, the best action sports, and the best of pop culture with some epic guests thrown in. I am Jim Beaver, and this is the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Brittany Cardone. Grab the popcorn. Welcome to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show, here with Kawasaki from the 2022 Dirt Expo in the Arizona Cardinals Stadium. Got my good friend Matt Martelli and co-host for the day, and my other good friend Jon Rall with Kawasaki. We're just talking about, West Virginia. Jon, you've been on a travel bender in the last, how many states have you hit in the last 24, 48 hours?
Oh, I hate to think. I mean, I've flown across country twice in the last couple days and then flew out here this morning and everything. But you know what? It's great to be here, and it's great to see how many exhibitors and how many people are here. But the number one thing is how many families are here.
Oh, it's awesome, right?
And I think that's really good because it just shows how big the off-road community is and how it's growing and everything.
Well, and how strong it is here in Arizona. I mean, this is one of the corners of what I like to call the Bermuda Triangle, right? And, you know, it's Arizona, Nevada, California, right? So, no, it's great. This is a great show. I'm really impressed with the layout. And for those of you guys who can't see what we're looking at, we're inside of an NFL stadium. It's really cool.
I think this might be – I know PRI has done stuff in the Colts Stadium, but for an off-road show, I think this is probably a first time one's been in a football stadium.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I can't think of another one that has it. But one thing you were talking about, the West Virginia trails, they're also, even though I call it stick season back there because all the leaves are gone, but the trail system, I mean, Matt, you've been out there.
Yeah, Hatfield-McCoy trail system is really cool.
I've heard West Virginia, it's just weird, and I mean this in the best possible way. It's one of those weird states, like you think of West Virginia, I think of coal industry, blue-collar, hard-working people, and everything I've seen pictures, it's like a rugged, beautiful state.
It is, and what you said there is it is very blue-collar and everything. But what's really been good to see about the off-road community, what it's done for that area, because literally little towns that were just falling apart and everything now have sprung up with so many little businesses, whether it's a pizza parlor or a place for Airbnb, for people to stay. I mean, Matt, you've been out there, but it's really brought so many people in, and so many people come in and just enjoy it and keep on coming back. I've been lucky to be out there so many times, but I like the thousands of miles of trails.
Oh, they're beautiful trail system, but I think you're right, and it's something that we don't talk about enough is the economic impact of off-road. When we go to an area and start traveling there, we bring people, and people spend money, and they support businesses, and not just off-road businesses, but we like to drink and we like to eat, and we stay in hotels.
Off-roaders like to drink?
Yeah,
I would have never thought.
A little bit. Actually, I'm surprised it's not happening right now. It's already.
They do have a beer garden back there somewhere.
They do. I'm watching. Everybody keeps walking by me, and I'm like, "Where'd you get that?"
I should have brought us a couple bottles of wine. While
there
I was
we
at
go.
The house.
John's got the good wine. I like the. It's always a surprise whatever Jon shows up with, but I know it's going to be good.
Yeah, Matt, like this year when you did your 300 and everything, what I thought was so cool was going to all the little restaurants there in Barstow and everything, and see them busting out of the seams. But talking to some of the people, the waitresses and waiters that were working there, were saying how much fun and how neat it was to see everybody out there. But you brought a lot of the impact to that little part of Barstow and everything.
Yeah,
and it's important.
It's one of the things that we've learned over the years of doing the Mint 400 is, we bring $40 million in impact to Las Vegas. And, in Las Vegas, that number isn't very big, but it is significant. So when you talk about all these outlying cities that we like to go to, whether that's in California, Arizona, Nevada, or West Virginia, it's a big impact. I actually saw a report that was done by the Department of the Interior that measured outdoor recreation at like 2.7% of the GDP. And now, not all of that is off-road, but the majority of that is. So, we have a significant financial impact where we go.
Yeah, and you're seeing it everywhere we go. Because I did think that in Barstow it was really cool to walk through and see all that and everything.
Yeah, the businesses were definitely happy with us there in Barstow. We brought a lot of business to them. So that was really cool.
Barstow was interesting, too, because I hadn't been to Barstow and spent time there in a long time. I mean, as a kid, I was there all the time when my dad was racing, things like that. But we ventured off. Like, there's that area right there with the outlet center and all that. But we actually ventured off. One night we went out and we found some pizza place across town. I say across town. It's 4 or 5 miles away. It's like Pizza Planet or Pizza Palace or something like that. Amazing. And the place was completely dead that night. And some of the best pizza I've ever had, but it was like ventured out into like a different area of Barstow, that probably wasn't getting quite the economic impact of all the area, the direct area right there. And just kind of cool and talk to those people, and they were just excited people were there. Parker's the same way. Parker's about a month out, and our little town, when the 425, 250 come, I mean, it's a massive impact that some of those small businesses carries them through the year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember going to Parker as a kid. And a lot of those businesses weren't even there. And Parker, it's along the river, so it gets a little bit of river business, but it was really put on the map from off-road racing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, I mean, you come from the NASCAR world too, John, and it's just funny because I've always blown myself away, like, with some of the small communities that have these NASCAR tracks that are legacy tracks that have been there for years and years. And you look and, people want to talk about, going to these big major markets with NASCAR. NASCAR's still got tracks in some small areas, and somehow they fill the places for NASCAR races. But I got to think those NASCAR races that go there once a year got to carry some of those communities for the entire year.
They do, and what I think's really been interesting to watch, and I'll give Marcus Smith and Dale Jr. too, what they've done having North Wilkesboro come back and what happened with that this summer and seeing the fans come, I mean, there's a place that, used to have a couple cup races a year. It all went away. The town kind of dwindled, and then you look what's going on, and now they're going to have the all-star race there, and, they sold out every seat in like 30 minutes and everything. But what it's going to do, the economic impact for that area of North Wilkesboro and everything, it's great to see those kind of things happen and everything for all the small little businesses. Because, we go back to the Hatfield-McCoys at the end of the trailheads, and there's so many. Now you've seen little aftermarket shops, to where if you do have a flat, you can go in town and you can get something. But, yeah, the NASCAR thing, I think it's very important is, everything does move up and up and up, and they want more and more and more. But I think it's really great that they're going back to some of those, because that's why I like watching some of the other series, like the Sprint Car series and stuff like that, because they go to where it's everybody in the neighborhood goes to the Saturday night or Friday night deal, and the kids are all running around having fun, or, I think that's what's needed.
Yeah, you been to Crandon, John?
That's the only one I haven't been to.
We got to get John to Crandon. But
it's on.
It's there's 60, 70,000 people show up to this town that normally has 2,500 people in it.
Yeah.
And, you want to talk about an event that carries a community for the year.
Well, and what's rad about it is it shouldn't exist, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
No, there's no
right?
rhyme or reason for Crandon.
But it does, and it's beautiful,
Yeah.
But, let's talk about UTVs for a second, because UTVs are really the paradigm shift that's happened that has allowed to open up these spaces, because now you don't need $100,000 to buy an off-road vehicle. Mm-hmm. You can go into a dealership and get financed, and you're out the door having a good time for a couple $100 a month. So that's really changed everything and opened up the accessibility of off-road. And I'm really excited to see what happens, especially on that side of the country, with trail systems and the evolution of off-road, because they're just starting to figure out how awesome these vehicles are and how much fun you can have with your whole family in them. We've known, we've been doing this since we were kids and going to Glamis in the desert with all sorts of different vehicles. So, but you go to Glamis now and it's all UTVs, and it's crazy.
You're really right. The evolution of all the off-road stuff that we've all lived through, whether it's 2-wheel, 3-wheel, or whatever wheel, as long as it has wheels, It's so much fun. But it's really great to see how the UTVs have brought the whole family, to be able to go do things. And, it's even kind of crazy because some of my friends said, my kids, I think they learned how to drive in a UTV.
Yeah.
And, they are better drivers because they had some time to, do that kind of stuff and everything. So.
Well, that's my brother's daughter, my niece. That's how we taught her how to drive. So she just got her driver's license, or she just went for a driver's test. And the person testing her is like, how old are you? Right? Because she's been driving since she was 6.
My daughter was the same way. I mean, she was in a 170 UTV, I think, at 4 years old, 3 years old. It's like she was on a 50cc dirt bike at 3. So, it's just kids. It's just, I don't know. It's escalated. It was just funny when I learned how to drive. There wasn't UTVs. It was you were out in a truck or whatever. It was. Yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting, man. It's expedited everything exponentially, the driving talent.
Oh yeah, the first off-road vehicle I ever drove 4 wheels was the Cheneth, right? And they weren't the easiest things to shift, And being that young, like you had to stretch your leg out to hit the clutch and the gas pedal and everything. So you're like stretched out in the car trying to drive this thing. It was pretty funny.
Yeah,
it's neat to see though. All the kids that are out there learning how to drive and learning the responsibility and stuff like that. And I think it does help for the future drivers and stuff like that.
I mean, that's the second part of the paradigm shift that UTVs has allowed is kids, youth racing, right? And now we have kids that, start at 6 years old and start racing 170s with us. And, we're seeing that first wave come to fruition with Seth Quintero and R.J. Anderson and Mitch Guthrie Jr., and, they're amazing drivers.
It's great to see the classes that you have because I think it's so important to start them off and the way you guys do it and make them go through the tech, make them go through all the stages that they need to do, not just, hey, roll out your machine here and everything, but they're checked so that they kind of feel like the big brothers or big sisters that are racing in the bigger class, they're doing the same thing and going through the same motions.
Well, that's what we want to do at all of our racers is have youth racing so they can see, the big dogs and aspire to move up to that at some point,
And the parents need a place to spend some money.
The parents are a little tough.
I think youth racing's got a little hand in some regards because I look at some of these little 170s and stuff, and they've got $25,000, $30,000 and billet transmissions, and I'm going, yeah, this shouldn't.
Oh, we're trying to keep it under control, but let me tell you, the parents that's a whole next level of cheating. It's crazy.
The same things happen with jet ski racing with the young kids and everything. It's. My dad can out mortgage his house than than your dad.
Oh,
so.
we had a funny incident where we had a dad show up with titanium frame, and of course our tech director Bill Savage wrote the book, right? So he caught it right away, and he's like, "Yeah, we can't allow you to race. That's not safe at all." But he goes, just out of curiosity, what did it cost to build these things? And he told them the number, and I think at the end of the build, they were Razor 170s that cost them 80 G's to build.
Oh my God!
Can you imagine your dad spending 80 G's on an 8-year-old?
Oh my
gosh, it's crazy. So we're trying to reel them in and keep them under control, but
we're in the wrong business, Sims.
Yeah, right.
But no, it's fun to watch and everything, but it really is fun whenever I go to the Mint or wherever I go to your 300 and everything and see the kids right in between the bigger units and everything, and then, getting to see them move up. I think you guys have done a great job with that. Your whole company has.
I appreciate that. But, for me, it's been really exciting because I know that the youth are our future. And for a long time, this sport was really older, right? Because you generally had guys who had successful businesses and they were in their 40s or 50s and they were starting to race at that point. So they didn't have a very long lifespan as far as being competitive. Now that it's changed with UTVs and youth racing, it's become so accessible, and I just think that we're going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, we're going to take a short commercial break and then probably bring in Baja 1000 champ to the show here, Kawasaki at the Dirt Expo. This is the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. General Tire delivers for whatever life brings your way. General Tire's Grabber X3 all-season mud terrain tire offers aggressive styling and is engineered for durability with innovative performance features that are ready to carry you through extreme mud, dirt, and rock-covered terrain. For extreme traction that's ready for anything and rugged styling to match, look no further than the Grabber X3. General Tire delivers. Check out GeneralTire.com today. General Tire, official tire of The Jim Beaver Show.
Conditions off the pavement are always changing, so why settle for a light bar that just turns on and off? The Rigid Adapt is a revolutionary new light bar that will automatically select from 8 beam patterns that range from a widespread 90-degree flood to a 15-degree spot based on your vehicle's speed. Try that with your knockoff light bar. A dash-mounted controller allows the user to toggle between adaptive mode, beam patterns, and RGBW accent lighting. With Adapt, it's easier than ever to own the night.
Dig what you're hearing? Well, do us a favor. Head over to Apple Podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Brittany Cardone and catch all of our back episodes. Welcome back to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show here at Kawasaki from the Dirt Expo. Got my Martelli with me, and we got a little bit of royalty with us.
Baja 1000 champion. We need like a drum roll. Branden Sims.
Here we are.
Yeah, it's awesome. We're in an NFL stadium at the off-road show at Dirt Expo. This is so cool,
I
right?
think last time off-road was in this stadium was when Robbie had Stadium Super Trucks in here.
I was there. I remember it very clearly.
Yeah, this was one of the state-of-the-art stadiums when they first finished it. I mean, it's a beautiful stadium. It's actually downpouring outside when I came in.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah, it's downpouring. Yeah, It rained all the way down from Prescott. So, we're out of the rain, and everybody's able to shop and check out the exhibits, and we're dry.
I'm thankful that I was gonna park at the hotel and then walk over. I was like, I'm gonna drive the car. Now I'm really thankful I drove the car. And it's just right out.
Yeah, it's literally downpouring out there. So yeah, it's we're in the middle of the desert. We don't get much rain, but here it is. It's raining.
Of course, whenever you plan a show, that's when the weather's going to come. But it's not a worry because we're all covered in this one. This is really cool. Andy did a great job and his team, and it's packed. There's a ton of people here. And a ton of exhibitors. So.
Crazy thing is to get this stadium on a weekend during the middle of NFL season.
Yeah.
That was like to time this thing where the Cardinals had a bye or an away. Like, it's pretty amazing because getting an NFL stadium on a weekend in the middle of the NFL season doesn't happen very often.
Well, I love this stadium just because of how the grass rolls out.
Yeah, just goes out the back.
It just slides out the back. We're on concrete right now, and the grass is outside getting watered.
Yeah, that's super smart on them, so that way they can use this place for other things besides, and having to worry about the grass and stuff. It's gone, and like you said, it's concrete here, and it's perfect for, a show like this, Most places don't want us in there,
I know.
And here we are, and it's pretty cool.
So you had a perfect race. Nothing went wrong, right, at the 1,000?
Oh, come on. Nobody knows. Everybody knows there's no such thing as a perfect race in a 1,000-mile race like Baja.
It was super easy. You just had to stop for beers, and everything was good, right?
Basically, we started the race, and from, flag to flag, we had no issues. But little does everybody know that never happens. Everything Instagram, social media portrays usually a different story, whether it's relationships, racing, whatever it may be. Nobody ever wants to show the bad stuff, but we didn't have any kind of part failures or anything, but we did, like I was talking to you, we did have that bottleneck issue. And
what race mile was that at?
So it was like race mile 102-ish, so towards the beginning of the race, which is unfortunate because, if there's a chance of a bottleneck later in the race, at least it's a little bit more separated, or, in my opinion, you have the vehicles, if you make almost every Baja, there's going to be a bottleneck somewhere, whether it's in a silt issue or a rock issue, or in this case, it was the summit where there's really nowhere to get around. It's not that the guy was really stuck or anything. It was just he was in a bad spot and there was nowhere to get around. So usually the bottlenecks, it's nicer if they're towards the end of the race because there's usually a way to get around them, or, most of the vehicles that have made it to the end of the race are good drivers, or, part malfunctions have, worked their way out before they've gotten to that point. But, this was kind of at the beginning. We were all tight. Everybody's racing really hard at the beginning, and adrenaline's fueling you. It's frustrating to sit there and watch, other people from the same class that you're in make it through it, and then the truck you're behind happens to break down. So
yeah, it's got to be crazy. Like you're 10% into a 1,000-mile race, right? You barely just started going, right?
Yep, and the helicopters are flying above. I know they're radioing to everybody, letting everybody know, score ops and whatever it may be. And, now with Fishgistics and everything else, they're able to report with Starlink and everything that's going on. It's kind of cool to see, a lot of people can actually see what's going on in real time now compared to what we've been dealing with in, the past. Nobody knows. Everybody's looking at the tracker, seeing that there's a bunch of stopped vehicles, but usually they have no idea why. Now with technology, everybody knew there was a bottleneck. It was on the summit. There was a truck. There's a line of UTVs that are stuck behind them. So it's kind of cool to see that part of it.
Yeah, that's a mental part of off-road, though, like the bottlenecks and, like, as a driver, like, not doing something stupid, once you get out of it, not overdriving the car and destroying it. It's like there's such a mental game, especially in Baja. You know what I mean? In a race like the Baja 1000, that's what's crazy. Everybody thinks about fast drivers. I'm like, man, having your mental game on point in Baja is just as important as being a fast driver.
Yeah, and it's really tough because right before that bottleneck I was talking about, I was actually in another one where a truck got high-centered on the differential on a rock. And I was like, man, I could probably just push him off of this. He's right in front of me, so I pull up to my bumper, and I'm like, all right, I've got four-wheel drive. I could probably put it in low. He probably just needs a little bump. Because I'm still at this point, I'm in a traffic jam, and my other people are getting away from me, and I'm frustrated. And adrenaline is a hell of a drug. I mean, you're sitting there, and it's just making you shake and frustration. Spend so much time and effort to get down to the Baja 1000, and the last thing you want to do is watch everybody drive away from you, and it's an uncontrolled thing. If it's a part failure or something, it is what it is. But to watch everybody drive away because somebody got stuck in front of you, it's frustrating. So I pulled up on the guy that got stuck, and he was high-centered on his differential, and I was like, I'll just push him off of this. So I got behind him, and I'm pushing him with my razor, and I'm trying to push a big, heavy truck in my razor. And, sometimes it works, but this time, I was like, all my lighting is basically on my bumper. I like to have all my lights on the bumper, not up on the roof or anything. So I'm stressed. It's 100 miles into the race, and I'm worried about taking out my lights and then not knowing about it because I can't really see the lights. I can see the bumper, but I can't really see where my lights are at or if something's pushing on them or – but I'm frustrated wanting to get this guy out of the way, and I'm pushing on him, and then my belt smokes a little bit, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to hurt my car this early in the race trying to push, this other guy out of the way. So we're yelling at him, get out of the vehicle, because they have those mat track things mounted to their cage. I was like, get out, use those, and get yourself unstuck. And they were just sitting there trying to spin, and they wasn't going nowhere. So finally they got out and used their tracks and actually were able to get unstuck, and then that's when I made it to the next bottleneck. And but yeah, the adrenaline-fueled fury that you're having sitting there is frustrating.
It's got to be, man.
It is.
I'm watching everything go down, and I'm getting frustrated, right?
Oh, man.
And you get people, like, when I've been stuck in those situations in Baja, you get the people come up, and there's, like, a trophy truck there. Push him off the side of the cliff. Yeah. Forget the truck. Like, kill him. And I'm like, really? Like
genius-level advice starts
it's like
flying.
Driver and co-driver in the truck, just push them off. Who cares if they're dead carcasses? Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm like, people get savage.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. That ran through my mind.
Yeah, no, it does. But
and everybody's got their sirens on. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I can't do anything. Yeah. There's the sirens are all behind me. I'm like, oh, my gosh.
I was racing in a record race. It was Ensenada to San Felipe in a Class 7. And right after Ojos, there's the one, dip that we always get bottlenecks there.
Yeah.
So sure enough, we get to it. It's all bottlenecked. And mostly Mexican race teams racing this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And but a lot of Class 7s. There's like 30 or 40 of them. And there, I pull up, and these guys are like full-on fist fighting, right? And I'm like, guys, like, if you beat him up, like, you're not going to get the bottleneck clear. That's not a solution, right?
Right. Yeah, you're not accomplishing much at that point.
I'm sitting in the truck. Shut the truck off. I'm waiting for these guys to get done fighting, and there was a couple other cars in front of them, and we're all in the same situation. So it's just like, be calm. Let it get sorted out and then go. But we, at that point, we were in that bottleneck for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and one Class 7 had got through. And so he ended up winning the race. He checked out, and there was no way anybody could catch him. So, it's roulette, right?
Yeah.
As a promoter, people always come to me and say, hey, can I have my time back? And I'm
right.
like, sorry, this is off-road racing. I don't push a button and make a bottleneck.
Right.
It is what it is. And, when on our side, we put wenches and, people to tow people out of areas that we know are going to be problematic, but that's a part of it, man. It's just like MMA.
Yeah.
You train, you go in, you get clipped, and it is what it is.
Well, and that's a lot of times strategy comes into play. Unfortunately, there is strategy that comes into play, and I mean, there's lots of advantages of starting in front in your class. There's sometimes advantages of starting in the back of your class. And if that bottleneck happens at a certain point, you could actually, if it happens in front of your entire class, you could actually end up catching up to most of the guys in your class, and it works in your advantage. Whereas this time, I started in the back of my class, and the front people made it through the bottleneck, and I actually lost more time to them. So there's strategy. So I was like trying to work my way up as fast as I could through the class, so that way I could get to the front and make it through any bottleneck that may happen. And I just was 3 vehicles away from it. Had I been one more vehicle in front, I would have been able to be in that lead pack and actually been able to put more time. But no, I got caught in it, So strategy, do you push really, really hard at the beginning of the race to try to get in front of everybody so you don't deal with the bottleneck? Or do you try to not worry about breaking your vehicle? It's so hard when you're sitting on the starting line trying to figure out what your strategy is going to be.
Well, and, you started by racing in the States. And so I watched you go through this transition of upping your game with your racecraft and learning Baja. Like, Baja's its own thing. And it's very complex because of the, you're allowed to chase. You're allowed to do a lot of things that, we don't necessarily do in the States. But talk about what it was like for you making the transition from racing, in the States to racing in Baja.
So in my opinion, I think there is a huge advantage by racing here and then working your way down into Baja. I think that the pace that we run up here is a faster pace. I don't think all the terrain up here is as rough. There's a few courses that I can kind of, contribute to being certain, aspects of Baja. Like I think the Mint 400 has a lot of everything, which is great. I really love the Mint 400 course, so I'll never talk crap on that race. But I think the pace that we run
He's
up here.
He's only won at some.
Yeah. There's a reason I like that race. I like the rougher races. They're just, I think, we excel at those.
He likes the check he gets at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So, I guess to answer your question, I think the advantages of, coming from, racing up here, we don't get to pre-run. We don't get those opportunities. So we're reading the terrain as it's coming at us because we don't have the opportunity to go pre-run the entire course. So you have to learn to be fast, read the terrain, and not know exactly what's going to be over the next bump or hump or corner or crest. So when we transition down into Baja and we do our pre-running, I don't actually get to do a lot of pre-running. It's a little tougher for me. I have a smaller program compared to most of the teams down there. So I don't get a chance to do a lot of pre-running. But I think that our pace that we bring and that we've brought, the top guys have brought down there, whether it be Phil, Austin, me, the guys that have raced in the States have brought it down there. And I think the pace has really picked up in the UTVs down there just because we've brought a fast group of guys down there, and now we're all racing each other. And now everybody's kind of had to pick up their pace and pick up their game a little bit because we're fast down there. There's no doubt. We're running really hard. I mean, I got some texts at the end of the Baja 1000 and said, well, is this really the pace we're going to be running from now on? I said, I guess so. I mean, that's what the trucks are doing. I mean, if your vehicle stays together, you have a good chance at winning. But, I mean, the pace has really picked up. And we've gotten so competitive down there. So I think there is a huge advantage of having the experience up here in the States and then bringing that experience and knowledge down into Baja.
Sure.
I'd agree with that, too. And I've mentioned that to quite a few people. So people get into the sport, they immediately go, I want to go race the Baja 1000. Mm-hmm. I'm like, everybody does. And I'm like, spend a year at least, go and do some of the bigger stateside races. I was like, and even go to Vegas to Reno because I was like the chasing and things like that, the logistics of Vegas to Reno. It's a miniature version of what you need to have for Baja. So I'm like, there's some cool stuff in the States. I'm like, if you can do a year here in the States, it's a good stepping stone to go and do Baja. I'm like, nobody should ever go and do the Baja 1000 their first race ever. And I'm completely adamantly against it. Yeah. I'm like, it's just a bad idea all around. I get there's these arrive and drive programs where you pay and you just show up and everything's catered. It's a little bit different. But I'm like, your own program, I completely agree with what you're saying. I'm like, you can take a lot from the States and then apply it to Baja, and it's just – Baja's not a great place to start and learn how to off-road.
No, and it's very unforgiving. I mean, you could spend the night out there real easy. They don't have, chase crews or, the organization doesn't supply vehicles to go get you out of the desert. You're on your own at that point to figure out how you're going to get out of the desert if you have a catastrophic failure. Best in Desert, Martelli's, they've always got, volunteers that come out there and help you try to get out of the desert as much as possible, and they're willing to, put their vehicles in predicaments to help you get them out. Baja, you're not calling for somebody to come get you out. You're figuring it out yourself.
You're on your own. I've spent multiple nights in that desert, and I know it well. And it's funny though, because it changes your perspective in life when you go through those experiences. Because you realize, like, okay, cool, I'm spending the night out here. I've got water. I've got something to eat, and it's not cold, right? It's not snowing or anything, so you're all right, right? And so you go through that trial by fire, and you come out the other end and come back to the States, and somebody's telling you about all their problems, and it's like a drone. You're like, dude, this doesn't even matter. You don't have no idea what we just did and went through, and we didn't die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree. I think that Baja is magical in many ways. It's beautiful and dangerous, and just a very special place for off-road racing. But yeah, I agree with you. I recommend getting your chops in the States, getting comfortable with your capabilities, your team capabilities. And then the other thing I recommend is go to Baja without racing. Just go get acclimated. I started going down there when I was 12, and I'm really intimate with that peninsula, but there's still spots where I'm like, I call them black spots, where I'm like, I need to go there and see it and understand, how it connects to this and so on and so forth. Because it's great to explore down there, as is America, right? Like, I was just invited to go camping with my neighbors in Ocotillo, and I've been all over Ocotillo. Well, they took me to an area of Ocotillo that I'd never been in. It was beautiful. So, I think that's what's great about off-road is, the idea that we're going to do everything off the pavement and go explore the earth. So
Yeah, invite yourself, or try to get in with a chase crew or something, and experience it that way. That way, you kind of have an idea of what's going on, and then then go do your own program after that.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's there's a lot of good chase crews out there that need bodies. They need people to drive trucks.
Yeah.
Especially if they're mechanically inclined.
Exactly.
Which I'm not. So I could build you a website and a bitchin' video in the middle of nowhere, but changing your transmission is not going to happen with me. But no, that's really cool, and mad respect to you. You've been really consistent with your racing. You've always been right there. If you have a mechanical failure, that's really the only thing that I see you've had any sort of issue with. And it's exciting too to see, at the Mint or the Baja 1000, to see the evolution and the pace pickup. I remember a couple of years ago when the Ampudias won the 1000, they were driving like crazy people.
Yes, they were.
And every pit, at the beginning of the day, we're like, oh, they can't keep up that pace. There's no way.
Yeah.
You get to the next pit, here they come. Oh, they're going to be done by the next pit. They can't keep up that pace. And they did have problems, but man, they set down a blistering pace and ended up winning. And I give them all the respect in the world. It was just like, it was craziness.
Yeah. I remember watching some of the videos where they were making some pretty sketchy passes down there on the coast.
Yeah. That was just one part, right?
Yeah.
So, these vehicles now are very capable. We have a lot of drivers who are very capable. And, and the same with UTVs. They continue to evolve, These cars keep getting better and better, on all the platforms.
Yeah, and they're evolving quickly is the crazy thing. How much everything's changed over the last few years, compared to looking at the other vehicles that race, Class 10s and trophy trucks. And, trophy trucks have evolved quite a bit recently because of the addition of all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
But before that, there was, I swear, before that, wasn't a ton of evolution,
No.
Shocks.
Little bits, little shocks, a little braking, a little,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like these UTVs. It's just crazy the pace.
Yeah,
that
it's
we're running
tenfold.
at
It's
now.
like every couple of years. It's just insane what next the manufacturer does. And they go, everybody goes, wow, that's crazy. The suspension travel, the tire sizes we've changed, and the way the all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive system works, and now with Polaris with their four-cylinder engine. It's just nobody ever thought that was going to happen. That really blew everybody away. So it's just crazy to see it, the evolution, and it's going to continue, and they keep pushing each other, So now that Polaris has done it now, we're going to have, Can-Am and Kawasaki and all the other manufacturers going to be doing the same thing. They're going to keep pushing the limits because they can.
Yeah, I think it's part of it is that, but the other part of it is I think that they've all realized that there's this almost unmitigated consumer demand, and I always liken it to selling dope, right? It sounds a little crude, but the reality is I can take anybody in the world and put them in a UTV, and they go, wow, I had no idea. And especially once they drive. and it is the most fun per dollar that you're ever going to have. And once you get them in the vehicle, it's done.
Yeah.
You know, I've converted so many people at this point to UTV enthusiasts. I should own a dealership.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love it, and I love sharing it with people. I love seeing the stoke, and you know, I think it's very healthy for you know, men, women, families, kids to get in these vehicles and to go out into nature and hang out with each other. Go to the spots where your cell phone doesn't work.
It's made off-roading
you know what I mean?
accessible. I mean, you know, in the past, it's like, you know, you wanted a buggy. You had to buy a six-figure buggy to go to Glamis or do it right. You know,
and you had to know somebody.
Yeah, well, a dirt bike. A dirt bike's intimidating. Yeah. I love riding dirt bikes, but it's not something you start out on. Oh, I'm going to go buy a KRX 450. Like, you just, you know, you don't start out on that. It's intimidating. It hurts to wreck. It hurts to learn. You know, so it's like, but UTVs, it's like driving a car. You know, to get good in a UTV isn't, but it's like, it's accessible. Anybody can go out.
And they're very easy to drive, and they're very forgiving.
Yeah, and one of the other things is, you know, I was into the buggy craze there for a while because I went to Glamis. I've been going to Glamis forever. But, you know, you use your buggy 3-4 times out of the year, and when summer came, it was done. You know, now the nice thing about the UTVs or the side-by-sides, there's a place and time you can use them all year long. You know, if it's hot, you go somewhere cold, or if it's cold, you go somewhere warm, and you can use them all year long rather than just a couple months out of the year, which has really made it a lot more.
It's like you're like me. I mean, we're Arizona boys, so it's like mine in the garage. When the weather's good, I'll just drive it around town.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're the same way.
Yeah,
you're
we're very fortunate when it comes to that.
But to me, it's a second car, and it gets way better mileage than my F-250.
Yeah, so. It's enjoyable. It's like having a convertible. You know,
and that's what I love about Arizona. Being a guy who lives in California, and we're pretty restricted on everything, right? And we're paying a lot for everything. You come over here, and it's just free, right? It's like, all right, we can go riding, and you know, maybe you go down a different or the wrong trail, and nobody freaks out on you. They're just like, hey, that's not, you know, this. But there's so much beautiful off-road accessible areas here in Arizona. It's just incredible. And I think that as we work through the trail system management and, you know, all the different things, it's just going to open up more. I'm really excited. And I want to do more domestically as well. Like, I've got to do rides in lots of different states, and I'm always pleasantly surprised. Like, you know, a while ago we did a project where we went over to New Mexico and rode around New Mexico, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and there's nobody out there riding.
No.
You know, so there's
New Mexico's a weird state.
It is.
And I mean, it's beautiful. It's, you know, I don't know. It's just a weird state. Like, even politically, everything, like, I haven't figured New Mexico out yet.
Don't try and figure it out.
No, and it's just
let it be New Mexico, right?
No, but it's like you said, it's this beautiful state. Like, nobody's off-roading. It's just I haven't figured.
Yeah, just the northwest corner is like the only thing that I know that people actually go off-roading. Like, off the top of my head, like Farmington area. You know, that's like about the only place in New Mexico that I hear of off-roading. You know.
Well, we were down in Truth or Consequences in that area, and I know a little bit of the history that you know, of basically the Indian Wars there. So it was really cool because you're cruising through all these canyons, and you're like, this is where they used to ambush people, right? Yeah. And then you go up these mountains, and you're cruising up these mountains, and you see all the old mines, and some of them, you know, they still have claims on, and there's dudes up there still trying to find gold, right? So it's really cool, and that's everywhere. Like, everywhere, you know, I've traveled, like, probably the furthest destination right before COVID actually was we were in China.
Okay.
And we were in Inner Mongolia in the dunes, and you know, we're cruising around, and like, sure enough, there's, you know, local Chinese guys there with UTVs, and they come cruising over, and they're waving their arms, and they're all, Americans? And we're like, yeah, and they're like, oh, this is so great, right? And I'm like, this is bitching, man.
Yeah,
you
I
guys
wouldn't even expect that.
Their dunes were, and these were their small dunes, because we weren't in the Gobi Desert yet. But they were beautiful. It was 10 times as big as Glamis.
Really?
And then they had rivers running through it.
That's cool.
So you would come over the crest, and it would be like a green oasis. And the people that lived down in that area, you know, mud huts, no power. You know, it's like going back in time 2,000 years. But it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And you know, whatever country it is I go to, you know, I always immediately try and figure out where I'm going to go off-roading. And now usually they have UTVs in those countries. Like one of the trips coming up I can't wait to go do is Brazil.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, dude,
to go cruise around down there.
Yeah.
I've been to Brazil before, and it was amazing. The people were amazing. The food was amazing. If you're single, which I'm not, the women were pretty amazing. But everything was awesome there, and just a ton of land to go explore there.
So is that in like the rainforest part?
Both. So
I love rainforest. So
we were in Sao Paulo, and then we went towards the coast to Marcias and went cruising around there, and then went over to Belém, and then up to basically where the Amazon River ends. And, like, the whole time it was like, like one part of the country is completely different than the other part of the country, but it was beautiful, and I can't wait to go back there.
Interesting. Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah.
One of the things I want to touch on before we let Branden go, one of my favorite parts of this program, we talk about UTVs and how it's accessible, things like that. People think of off-road, and they think it was a rich man's sport. You look at Branden's career, and this is a guy who literally started with nothing, didn't have a rich family, didn't, whatever, like literally started out and grew his program from nothing to being a Baja 1000 champion with a factory program.
And a Mint 400 champion.
And a Mint 400 champion. But to me, that's
and
pretty
UTV
rad.
World champion.
But it's proof, like, because I know the origins of your program. I mean, you're going to Star Island and paying retail for parts.
I financed my first razor that I built to race.
Yeah.
And I thought at the end of the year I was going to have a beat-up machine, but I wanted to go see how I raced or how I can compete against the top guys. So, I mean, I financed my first razor that I raced in. And
that's rad.
To me, that's what's rad, though. But, there's people on the outside, it costs a lot to get started off-road or whatever. I'm like, this guy right here is on top of the world, and he started out with nothing.
Well,
so
the other part that I love and I want to point out, too, is you do your own prep, right?
I do. Yeah, I'm the only one.
So, that's, I think, an important thing. And let me ask you this because I kind of already know the answer. Do you think that that's an advantage?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think that's a huge advantage. I mean, I know my car inside and out. I've gotten to the point where I can actually afford to have a chassis built for me rather than I used to build my own chassis because it was the only way I could afford to do it. So now I'm to a point where I can actually afford to have, I have Lone Star Racing build my chassis. But when I pick it up from them, it's just a chassis. Nothing's bolted to it because I want to put it together. I want to know exactly where, I know almost every bolt off the top of my head, what size, socket it's going to take it off. I know exactly that thing inside and out. So I think it's a huge advantage to know everything about it. I mean, I could pull into the pits and be like, this is exactly what we're going to need for this if we're going to be replacing this, or if there's anything that happens out in the middle of the desert, I can fix it usually, and it's just a huge advantage to know it. And, I kind of have an idea of what that thing can take because I know the size of everything as far as how strong it's built. So I think it's a huge advantage to have that knowledge of the vehicle itself inside and out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you, and I think that's, well, I don't think that is part of our culture, right? Like, it was racers and builders who built this culture, and you couldn't go buy something off the shelf to race like you can do now. So I think it's an important thing to preserve and make sure that, it's not just all dudes who show up and the car's ready to go.
Yeah.
That it's, blue collar people that, are getting their hands dirty. They're building cars, they're prepping cars, they're maintaining vehicles. And I listen,
less country club, Matt. You're avoiding the word less country club.
Well, for me, being a guy who wasn't really mechanical, like I've learned everything about mechanics from breaking stuff, in off-road. I'm like, oh, why did that break? And, so one of my engineer friends explains it to me. And it's usually like, well, were you mashing the pedal and smashing into things? I'm like, well, yeah. Well, you can't do that all the time,
right. Yeah, I think so. I think, there's a huge advantage with being able to I grew up with a mechanical knowledge. That's where my dad owns an automotive repair business. I was an automotive tech up until the point where I actually was able to actually start racing full time. And so that's what I did. So that's why, it was an easy transition to be able to prep my own stuff just because that's all I've done. That's all I know.
Yeah. No, it's really cool.
All right, we are going to take a short commercial break, come back. We're going to have Reid Nordin with us right here on the General Tire Jim Beaver Show from Kawasaki. General Tire offers a wide variety of options that are designed to deliver for whatever life brings your way. Whether you have a truck, car, or SUV, General Tire delivers for whatever you drive. From the long-lasting all-season Altimax RT43 to the aggressive all-terrain Grabber ATX, General Tire covers on-road performance, off-road capability, and durability. General Tire delivers. For more information, drive over to GeneralTire.com. General Tire, official tire of the Jim Beaver Show. Don't just shred your way through any off-road rugged terrain. Get into gear with GSP XTV and let us redefine your adventure. The GSP advantage of quality and performance sets a standard for UTV axles. We strive to provide premium ATV and UTV axles to keep you shreddy ready. Kick up some dirt and get in the driver's seat with GSP XTV. With over 35 years of experience, drive with a company you can trust. Drive with GSP. For more information, please visit us at gspxtv.com today. When looking for a new wheel for your off-road vehicle, car, truck, or UTV, the choice is easy. You choose what the pros use. Rob McCachran, Keegan Kincaid, and myself, Jim Beaver, all exclusively use Vision Wheel, whether we're dominating Baja, taking the cup at Crandon, or shredding UTVs. Vision Wheel's trend-setting designs and durability will set you apart from the competition and your friends. Check out visionwheel.com or @visionwheel on social media to learn more.
Life is all about sound, the sound of sports, the sound at the racetrack, and the sound of your vehicle. Don't drive around listening to this. Drive around listening to the sound of performance. Gibson Performance. Gibson Performance Exhaust is the company who can turn this into this. Remember that life is all about sound, and Gibson Exhaust is the sound of performance. Check out your next catback exhaust system, headers, muffler, or UTV exhaust at GibsonPerformance.com and get more power and more sound.
Social media? Yeah, we've got that. Jim Beaver 15 on all major platforms, and Jim Beaver Show, JB15 Group, and B Cardone 15 on the gram. Welcome back to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show, here with Kawasaki at the Dirt Expo. Speaking of Kawasaki, we got Reid Nordin. You just got a little bit of history with Kawasaki, just a little bit.
Yeah, well, it started with 30 years of employment.
Yeah, I was going to say just a little history.
And now it's been, 4 more years of racing. So
yeah.
Which did you like better?
Honestly, Kawasaki was very good to me for the whole time, and I got no complaints about everything. I learned a lot, met a lot of great people, got to work in an industry that I love, another toy company, which is awesome. So, it's great to play and race, but it's family. It's always been family. So
that's one thing I love. Like first time, kind of when I got my first deal about a year ago, and went in. John's like, "Hey, I want to give you the tour," and you go and they've got that wall, and it's got the names and how many years people have been there and things like that. And I'm like, a lot of people go to a lot of companies, and especially in this industry, and they go as a stepping stone for another job. People don't go to Kawasaki as a stepping stone; they go there for a career.
Yeah, I mean, I went there I was at a race one time, and I found out that they were hiring a mechanic, and I went and talked to the guys. That was a Sunday or Saturday, and I met him on Wednesday and started working on Thursday, and 30 years later I was still there.
That's awesome.
It was a good time.
How is it to be back now kind of in the Kawasaki ecosystem with Carson's program and things like that? I mean, it's got to be...
Let me re-ask that question, because how good does it feel to be in a Wernimont car racing with his son? That is the coolest thing, I think.
Well, my relationship with Wernemonts goes way back to the first trophy truck days. I don't even remember how it started, but I started helping him out, and when he was building, or before he built his first Jimmy Smith's first truck, and so I gravitated to that truck and just started helping him pit. And when I worked for Kawasaki, on non-race weekends, I was helping doing that stuff. So, and then he got out of it. When he got out of it, he got out of it, and for years I tried to get him back into the off-road community. And he built a sand car for me that was, I've never really said anything about it, but it was a one-off sand car that was long travel, mid-engine, but it was rotary powered. It was different than anybody else, and it was before all these big horsepower cars. And I got him to do it just because he wanted to kind of keep in touch with something, but he didn't want to build anymore. And I went to him one day and said, hey, I want to build a side-by-side now. You need to do this. And he goes, I don't really want to, but yeah. So I left him a car, and he started thinking about it. And next thing you know, he's got ideas in his head, and he starts bending tube and cutting stuff. And next thing you know, we got a concept car that was pretty cool. So I introduced him to Kawasaki, and that started that relationship. And, you know, he always wanted Carson to race, but he wanted Carson to learn the sweep and floor part of off-road first before. And, you know, Carson got to the point where he was world traveled from his RC car stuff, and he wanted to drive, and he'd gone to some schools. And so his dad finally felt it was time, you know, hey, I'm going to give you the reins a little bit. And I want you to help design it, and I want you to be involved, and then you can drive it. But you need to take care of it, you know, just like Branden said earlier, you know every nut and bolt of the race car. It's an advantage for the driver. He knows pretty much what it can take.
100%.
Carson's a little bit different because he doesn't have the experience that some of these other drivers have in the desert. You know, he had never ridden at night, driven at night. He had never driven in the dust before. So all these things kind of got me, you know, able to help him and mentor him as a driver. But having the machinery of a Russ Warnemont built and designed car under us is amazing. You know, I'm an old guy, and my wife always says, aren't you tired when you get done with that race? And I'm like, no matter what race it is, the Mint 400, the California 300, the brutalest races we've raced, and I'm like, I get out of the car and feel like, no problem, I can go more. And that's just a testament to the car. You know, the car's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think that, like, there's this knowledge transfer that comes from guys like Russ, right? And it always concerns me when they sit out or they're not getting the opportunities to build race vehicles and to contribute their knowledge to our culture, right? And so for me, you were giving me little like hints, and I'm like, dude, just tell me, you know what I mean? What's going on? Like, you know, and you know, finally, but the other part too is like, you know, he could have come into racing and he could have sucked. You know, it could have been problems with the car. There could have been all these things that went wrong, as usually is what happens, right?
No, he wins his first race.
He shellacks the field, right? Like, people are like, hey, he's cheating. You gotta. I remember guys calling me going, hey, there's this car that you need to outlaw. And I'm like, what? Why do I need to outlaw? Well, the shocks touch the A-arms. I'm like, well, that's not a rule for us. Like, so we're going to let it ride, right? And they were just so upset that somebody showed up that wasn't a known entity, and he showed up on the Kawasaki platform, which really wasn't an expected, you know, platform to come race and do well. And not only did he beat all the NA cars, but he beat most of the turbo cars, right? And then, you know, we, in our position as media and even promoters, we look at a ton of film. We probably look at more film than anybody on the planet on off-road. We're looking at the cars and how they work all the time in our edit bays and everything like this. And I'm telling you, like, watching that car work, I'm like, oh, my God, it's figured out, right? The balance of the car, the suspension, the setup, and that you know, that's Russ. That's the knowledge base, right? That's, you know, taking stuff that we learned in trophy trucks and transferring it to UTVs. So I love that stuff. I love seeing it. And I also love the upset of it, of like, who's this kid and what's this car and why is Reid riding with him? Like, everybody's trying to figure it out. And, like, you know, not only did he win that race, but he went on to win other races and do very well. And, you know, I'm really excited for his future, but also for the platform. You know, I could say personally that I've driven every UTV, you know, as, you know, media, as UTV Underground, and you know, an enthusiast. And I was super impressed with the Kawasaki 2-seater when it came out. I'm a bigger dude, so the other thing that I really liked about it is it's roomy on the inside. It's actually roomier than my wife's Subaru, you know. And
can we get that quote?
Yeah, and but then the 4-seater came out, right? And you know, like, I remember when Can-Am put their 4-seater out, and I'm like, what is this? You know, it's
the land yacht.
Yeah, it's like a limo, you know, and kind of a disaster, right? And so it's one thing to make a really good two-door car, but then when you go to the four-door, like you don't just scale it up and it works. And them coming out with the four-door and that being as good as it is out of the box was really impressive.
Well, I think their goal with the four-seater was to make it handle like the two-seater, but be able to carry more people, and they hit the target. The car's amazing. I've been driving a four-seater now for a while, recreation-wise, and I absolutely love it. Get to take my grandkids out, but yet you can go through any of the technical stuff that you can in the two-seater. That's what I love about the platform. And from a racing standpoint, it's a super, super solid car. There's no real known problems that everybody had to address in the aftermarket, which is a good problem and a bad problem. Good, it's because it's a good car. Bad, because there's not a lot of aftermarket products for it. But that's starting to change. You're starting to see that a little bit different now. But our race car is just it's not super flashy. It's not super exciting, but it goes. We can run max speed pretty much everywhere, and it carries good corner speed. Carson's good at holding lines, and it goes where we want it to go. So, the production to race has carried over quite well with that car. And sure, it doesn't have a turbo, but it goes plenty fast. We're not as fast. We're not the fastest NA car by a long ways, but we can go fast all day long.
That's really cool. And I'm stoked. I had lunch with Carson and Russ the other day, and I was telling Russ, I'm like, hey, dude, I'm just stoked you're back, right? Because he was already talking about other new things. It's like the way that creative people's brains work is it's stimulus, right? So once you problem solve a certain thing, then you all of a sudden it's like your brain is spinning on it and problem solving, and you want to try these things. You want to flesh them out and bring them out of your brain into a physical thing, and show everybody like, oh, this is the solution and this is how we can make it better. So I'm excited he's engaged, and I'm excited for Carson for his future.
Well, yeah. I know what they've got going on the UTV side, and I had a conversation with Russ. It was a few months back, and we were talking on the phone for probably 30 minutes, and he goes, I'm not being real public with this. He goes, people know, but he goes, I've got a trophy truck design in my head. And he goes, I'm going to do one more trophy truck. He goes, I don't know who it's going to be for yet. He goes, probably the right person will come along with the right checkbook, and we're going to do this. But he goes, I've got one more trophy truck design in my head, and he goes, it's something that the world's never seen before. And I'm like, when Russ Warnemont tells you that, you believe him and it's real. But it's like, I'm so excited as an off-road fan. I want to see whatever the hell's in Russ's head out in the flesh at some point in the future.
Yeah, I wish I could rip that check because I would just like to see it happen, right?
Right.
So maybe we should do a GoFundMe, right?
GoFundMe. Could be. Well, the first KRX race car was, we decided to do it. And we were able to, start with a decent platform. Which was a used vehicle in the beginning, to build that car. And that's, for me, my perspective on the whole Warnemont family and RWD is a little unique, and I've been trying to get him back doing off-road stuff for a long time. But Harley business has been really good to him.
Sure.
And, I think everything kind of fell back into place, and now seeing those gears turn in his head, not just on the UTV, but on the truck side, He wanted to build a pre-runner, and then he's kind of holding off, and I'm going to wait a little bit. And he sees what's going on in the off-road world now, because he was pretty blind to it,
sure.
Selectively blind to it.
Yeah.
And now he comes back and sees, everything still based off of the first trophy trucks he ever built. They're fine-tuned and beautiful works of art, no doubt. But Russ isn't that way. Russ is pure function and durability, and you see that from our KRX, and so I'd love to see him build another car.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I got a video on my phone of Russ driving the Jim Smith Bronco, which was Jimmy Smith's pre-runner.
Yeah.
So the stretched one that, and 30 years later, he sees the pre-runner and getting him to drive it, and you could just see the lights going on inside of his head about what he could do, now.
Yeah, and we got a random call from a guy who owned one of the Nelson trucks that he built, and he brought it to the California 300 to display. And we're trying to get a photo shoot done with it so we can document it and do a showcase on Off-Road Racer and kind of explain why that vehicle was important, right? This evolution that we went through. But no, that's really cool. But hey, tell us about your new gig at Rugged Radios, because this is really cool. It was funny. I was up visiting Greg, and he goes, the full bragging rights. Not like, hey, I have a new truck, or check out my new thing. He goes, Reid's coming to work for me, right? That's like, right on.
It was timing. I've been wanting to come to Arizona for a long time. My son went to school here in northern Arizona, so my wife and I fell in love with it. So I've been wanting to leave California for a long time, and timing finally just happened. And when I went to work for Randy at Walker Evans, I told him in the beginning, I said, here's my 5-year plan. And I gave him my 5-year plan for the business. I gave him my personal 5-year plan. And at the end of 5 years, I was in Arizona, and he was like, okay, cool. So it took me 7 years, but finally everything worked out, and we were able to move here. And I had employment lined up. I had already had my Kawasaki program that I'm helping those guys and doing a little bit more now. But I wanted to do more, And I had a gig worked out where I was going to work for an outside the industry company in Prescott Valley. And I was telling people in the industry that, hey, I'm not going to be with Walker anymore, and I'm going to be doing this. I'll still be around. And then I told that to Greg at Rugged, and he goes, what? You're available? And I'm like, well, yeah.
It's not really what I said, Greg.
So anyways, that got the thing going. And actually, Greg and I had talked about some expansion within Rugged a long time before that. So it wasn't like it was the first conversation. And I've been friends with the company for many, many years. And
great company.
Steve's and I, when it was just Steve and Steve doing a lot of the events, we were at events together. So it was a timing thing that just kind of worked out perfect. And Greg wanted to grow Arizona territory and have, the Rugged family face here. And it worked out. And I get to play, and I get to, work with great companies again still. And so it's been a pretty good marriage so far this first year. And I'm excited about what the future holds.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it, too. And, I would have kidnapped you back into the off-road industry if you would have been like, hey, Matt, I'm working for a construction company. I'm like, no, you're not. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's like, I think our culture is magical. It attracts people and creates people that are really smart, really passionate, and very creative, right? And what we do here in this culture ends up metamorphosizing into these products that people drive in the streets, right? And oftentimes, in fact, most times, the people who originated those ideas don't get credit for them. So I feel like as a person in the media and a promoter, it's my job to kind of point that out and be like, oh, Mickey Thompson invented that, or, John Markey invented that, or whoever it is, right? Randy Anderson invented that, right? And give those people a little bit of respect and a little bit of credit, so the whole thing carries forward and it keeps happening, right? So I'm glad you found a place and you're still in the industry, right?
Well, I'm pretty happy. Yeah. Things are working out. I get to play with side-by-side still. KRX is predominantly. I do some Jeep stuff. I do some motorcycle stuff, and all because of Rugged. So it's keeping me involved in all that stuff, plus the Arizona Raptor Run stuff. So I get to have fun with those guys. And, I'm blessed for sure to still be involved in the off-road community, because I wasn't really looking forward to stepping out completely. So
yeah, it's like when we get asked as Mad Media to do jobs that are outside of off-road, I'm like, sure, we'll do them, we'll knock them out, but we don't enjoy it. It's like a job at that point, and we're just trying to make money. I always prefer to do things that I'm passionate about and wake up in the morning stoked and excited.
Yeah, I've worked my entire career for toy companies, basically, and that's what I say. And that's the way I feel. I don't feel like I've ever worked. Believe me, I work hard, but I don't really feel like I actually work. It's so much fun. The community is beyond phenomenal. I mean, the people and the memories that I have from working with different people, all the iconic names that you just mentioned. You know, you're talking. You can think about stories about all those guys and what they've done for the sport. And I was really happy to see Randy Anderson get inducted to the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame recently, and he didn't want it for sure. You know, he's that type of character, and Russ is the same type of character. But it's important for the off-road community to recognize guys like that and their contribution to the sports.
100%. I mean, the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame, I don't think it even gets enough credit for what it's doing, and like all the people that within our culture, it's pretty vast. Whether it's people that are protecting our lands and working on land use, to people who are builders, race promoters, racers, in different disciplines. It's really cool what they're doing and recognizing that.
I don't know. I think it's probably time for another short break.
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to take a short commercial break here on the General Tire Jim Beaver Show from Kawasaki. When it's time to replace the tires on your vehicle, General Tire delivers the tires you need for both your next big adventure and your daily commute. Whether you need all-season traction, lasting treadwear, or a quiet drive, General Tires are designed to deliver whatever life brings your way. From all-season ultra-high-performance tires for passenger cars and crossovers to extreme all-season mud terrain and tires for light trucks and SUVs, General Tire delivers great performance. To find your ideal tire, visit GeneralTire.com. General Tire, official tire of the Jim Beaver Show. Are you looking for a place to push yourself behind the wheel and see how your driving skills stack up? Dirtfish Rally School is that place. Located on 315 acres of pristine automotive playground at the foot of the Cascade Mountains in Snoqualmie, Washington, right outside of Seattle, Dirtfish Rally School is a one-of-a-kind place where everyone from first-time drivers to seasoned professionals like Bucky Lassick and Antoine Lestage can push themselves to their limit. Whether driving the high-performance rally-prepped all-wheel drive Subaru Impreza STI is what you're looking for, or you'd rather hang it all out in the rear-wheel drive Subaru BRZs, Dirtfish Rally School has something for everyone. Classes are available from 2 hours to 3 full days and feature instructors with over 150 years of combined racing experience. Whether you're looking to become the best and get an edge on the competition, or just looking to freshen your skills behind the wheel, Dirtfish Rally School is the place to go. For more information on registering for classes, visit Dirtfish on the web at dirtfish.com, or to check out the latest happenings from Dirtfish, follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Dirtfish Rally.
Life is all about sound, the sound of sports, the sound at the racetrack, and the sound of your vehicle. Don't drive around listening to this. Drive around listening to the sound of performance. Gibson Performance. Gibson Performance Exhaust is the company who can turn this into this. Remember that life is all about sound, and Gibson Exhaust is the sound of performance. Check out your next catback exhaust system, headers, muffler, or UTV exhaust at GibsonPerformance.com and get more power and more sound.
Thanks for listening to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Brittany Cardone. Available online on SiriusXM on AM/FM networks across the U.S. and internationally on the American Forces Network. Head to JimBeaver15.com for all the details. Welcome back to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Kawasaki. Matt Martelli, Jim Beaver, joined by Dave Kuskie from the ASA. What's going on, Dave?
How's it going, guys? Oh, down here representing, trying to get the word out of some of the stuff that we're working on to try to keep all these riding areas open, especially fighting down at Glamis and different areas. We're part of the Pismo fight, which is that's a mess. So there's other people part of the Pismo fight, the Friends of Oceano Dunes. Those guys are up front fighting hard. We're fighting on the legal basis for jurisdiction over the state park there at Pismo.
Yeah, first off, I want to thank you for what you do. You guys are like the unsung heroes of our culture, right? And being somebody that grew up glowing. I'm glowing and going to Glamis. I appreciate what you're doing, and it's really important. So, if anybody out there that's listening who off-roads, donate to the ASA, because they're basically like our NRA.
Correct. I appreciate that. I'm new, came from the industry, but basically in 2019 I got
You're
up.
new? I don't think you've ever.
Yeah.
You're new, I guess.
I'm new to this lobbying part. I'm doing this fight.
You've been in the sand industry your entire career, buddy.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, but new to the on-the-ground fighting.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different thing. Learning that part of it, Well, we go way back with all kinds of different things with off-roading and that, but 19 got on board, humbled really quick on what's all involved in trying to get something accomplished.
Sure. No, it's a lot, and it's cool to see a lot of people join hands. I was there when you guys got the old area of Glamis reopened.
40,000 acres.
Yeah, 40,000 acres.
That was a huge deal.
Which was crazy because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that area got shut down because of a particular plant called milk fetch, which it turns out it's not endangered, right?
No, it's not at all. If you just look across the valley there, it's abundant across the whole valley there. Matter of fact, it used to cover all those farmlands that were there. You can go to an ag center, and they'll have special weed killer just for that milk fetch to get it out of the way.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that was, something that came out of the playbook of, I believe, Sierra Club, where they figured out that if they claim that something was
endangered,
yeah, and then somebody had to prove it otherwise, right? So
correct.
It's a bit crazy, but again, glad you guys are there fighting the good fight, helping us keep lands open.
Yeah, it's a good thing. That was an amazing success story back then when they had won that. I was the guy on the other end just writing checks and handing it to them because knew what the fight was. And it's really important to stay on board with the different advocate groups out there to keep the fight going and keep these riding areas going. And that's what's neat these days. And one of the part that I've been pushing forward is to get a lot of us groups start working together because we need to work together as a whole group to make this thing happen.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, I sit on the board of Tread Lightly, and that's part of my goal with what we do there is to get everybody to hold hands and fight like a big gang rather than individual groups. So
yeah, that was great at while we were at SEMA and NAMRAC and all that, be able to all of us get together, sit around in the same room, because we all have different points of expertise that we learn and how to move the needle forward and keep these lands open to us.
Well, and one of the things that I'm looking forward to in the future is kind of recategorizing off-road as not just recreational, but have it be categorized as a business because of the level of impact that we create on the areas that we recreate in.
Yeah, correct. It's just not the communities that are around there, but the families and how healthy it is for the families to get out and recreate together in these different areas.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. We were talking about that earlier, and as we're sitting here in this really cool event, and we're looking out, and we can see all the different trailers in the back that are for sale, and families walking around buying cars and buying parts. So yeah, this is a family culture.
Yeah, that's one of the things that a positive part about COVID is it pushed people to get out of that in the box, running around town, going to restaurants, to get out and enjoy and explore the outdoors and get out and away and find out what it's all about. I think that's why, the attendance to all the different camping areas, riding areas, and all that stuff is raised. There's a lot of people getting outside and enjoying the outdoors and how healthy it is to get out there with your family.
Yeah, just the RV industry. I mean, UTVs, dirt bikes. I mean, what the explosion of growth, sales. I mean, everything was just nuts. And then the aftermarket industry, it all ties in. And it's just it was a crazy couple of years there. But now everybody's got these, so it's like we need to continue to push to have places open so people that have all of these toys and everything else got a place to go
and get the education and the knowledge and the information out there, because there's a lot of newbie out there. Not that it's a bad thing, it's just we need to get the education out there. A lot of us have been around it for a long time, understand it. We just need to get the awareness out there. Yeah,
there's definitely a learning curve. We've had a huge influx of new users. I mean, it was already happening with UTVs, but you're right. COVID supercharged it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good thing. It reminds me of skateboarding, back in the 90s, and we had all these rollerbladers showed up, and we mishandled it. We should have been more inviting, and we should have kept them and converted them into, lifetime enthusiasts. And, we were young and full of ourselves, and, we made
fruit
fun
booters.
of them. Yeah, we drove them out, right? and that was a mistake. And so that's the thing that I want to make sure that we do the right way with UTVs, and and all the new enthusiasts. We want them here, but we want them to recreate responsibly. Take your trash out. Don't drive like a dickhead. Don't drive drunk. Wear your helmet. Like, it's basic stuff, but, I do quite a bit of riding, and I see stuff, and, I'm the guy who will walk over to people and go, hey, pick up your trash.
Yep. Be aware of your surroundings. Some of that, what's neat is it's bringing a lot of these different groups together. I was on a call the other day talking about the rock hounds, the people that go out and do the rock hunting and things like that. They were so anti-off-road forever, but now they've become aware that where they go is the same place we go. We need to work together, keep those areas open, and finding out that a lot of us are environmentalists too. We love where we ride. We love to keep it clean. We love to take care of the trails and the surroundings. I know some of my regular areas are some of the cleanest camps and camping areas in the desert.
Sure. No, I think that's always been a big misnomer about off-roaders being, somehow destroying the lands. It's like, we had to do an exercise for the BLM for the Mint 400 and try and figure out a percentage of the Mojave Desert that we were using. We couldn't, it was such a small 0 point, we couldn't figure it out because people don't understand. We're using a 20-foot wide course that's 100 miles long. It doesn't even compute in the scale of the Mojave Desert, and the Mojave is just one of our beautiful deserts. So, yeah, there is no off-roader on the planet who wants to go out and off-road in an area and see it trashed.
Correct. That's what's the amazing part about it, the true off-roaders, and especially a lot of the OGs that are out there. They're the ones that are running around that get called, sheriff's here. Making them clean up, making them do the right things, but that's what it's about. You want to go back to that same pristine, beautiful trail and riding area that you've been going to the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things I love about Arizona, Southern California, and Nevada is, it's once you get off the freeway, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, well, it's one of those. There's so many trails, too. As much as I've been on, in my life in the Southwest, it's like there's so much that I still haven't experienced, and that's so it's awesome. Somebody will tell you about some riding area here or there. It's like, oh, I've heard of it or I haven't heard of it. It's, there's so many cool things, to experience, and that's, like you said, I mean, most off-roaders I know, and there are a few bad eggs, but for the most part, the most environmentally minded people I know, it's same thing with, watercraft recreationalists, things like that. It's just, it seems like outdoor people for the most part aren't out there to do damage. They're out there to, enjoy nature and things like that.
Yeah, that's one of that biggest acknowledgement is all of us groups have that bad small percentage. Yeah. That happens to just be the ones that get publicized. And we're not talking about just on the off-road side. We're even talking about on the environmentalist side. They have small groups, Burning Man, perfect example.
Yeah.
I brought that out in a conversation when I was sitting up in Sacramento talking with a guy who's a conservationist completely on the other side. I says, hey, we all have bad groups. Yeah. And they were talking about it, complaining about us, and I just sat there and calmly just said, Burning Man. And they paused, and they were taken back. And I said, think about it. The ones that are passionate about what we do, we take care of where we're at.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. So, for everybody out there, what can we do to help the ASA, to help the fight?
The main thing is supporting the ASA, supporting the other groups, BRC, Tread Lightly, all the different groups. I get asked quite a few times, because there's Cal 4-Wheel and there's Corva. All of us have our expertise areas that we're really good at.
Sure.
ASA won in Glamis. We beat the CBD for 40,000 acres. That's unheard of. So we've got our expertise dealing with the Pearson Milk Fetch and dealing with what was processed there. Other groups have expertise in other areas. If you have a group that's in your area where you ride, support that group because they're taking care of the trails and the riding areas that you do. The main thing is we have business memberships, we have family memberships, and then when we're out at events selling raffle tickets, that money goes straight towards legal fees, expenses, and things like that to help fight for these riding areas.
Yeah, and let me talk specifically about the business aspect of it. Is if you are a business that makes money off of sand you need to be involved, right?
Correct.
If you are a business that makes money off of off-road, you need to be involved, because if you're not, this goes away.
Correct. Yeah, you lose. I've been doing this, coining this phrase, support your right to ride. It's like any of my business sponsors. I'll get out there and I'll talk about it. I says, you need to do business with those companies that are supporting your right to ride. They're putting money into the industry.
Yeah.
So you can enjoy what you like doing.
Well, and it reciprocates itself, and it's a thing I always tell people. It's like, listen, I don't need to know your politics. You go ahead and vote with your dollar, right? Yeah. And this industry generates, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars globally. So, all the people out there, I mean, it's your choice, right? Support brands that support the ASA, that support Tread Lightly, that support Orba, and Cal 4 Wheels and all the other organizations. It's really easy to find out who they're supporting, and spend your dollars with those people, because it'll help proliferate this thing, for perpetuity.
Yeah, correct. I mean, a lot of the companies, even the manufacturers are starting to step up more.
Yeah.
All of them, we've got something going with all the main manufacturers. Yeah. So support those companies that are supporting what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's really cool to see. I mean, even one of the things I was pretty impressed with is, as the Bronco was rolling out, they created the Bronco Wild Fund and started spending money on, on supporting keeping OHV areas clean and open. So I thought that was really cool of them to jump in as they were launching that vehicle and do that. So hopefully more of the manufacturers will follow suit.
A lot of the manufacturers have added on trail programs, and that is specific for helping with advocacy groups and helping fund for trail awareness and cleanups and maintenance.
Yeah, earlier you were talking about Pismo. Let's talk a little bit about that.
I actually would like the latest update on Pismo. There's been so much, I don't know. It's a mess.
It's a total mess. Like I mentioned, the group Friends of Oceano Dunes, those guys have been up on the front, right up front for 20-plus years fighting that thing on the ground. I said that, the ASA with Ecologic, we're fighting it on the legal basis because of when Pismo became around, which is Oceano. It was established way before the California Coastal Commission, San Luis Obispo Air Pollution Control District, and all that stuff was established way before these groups are trying to say they have jurisdiction or call the shots there. So through all this craziness that's been going on, the lawsuit is just starting to get to court now. So a lot of stuff's been filed. It's literally in the courts. So
just explain that to people. So you're basically suing to keep the land open.
Correct. Yeah, we're basically suing where the Coastal Commission is trying to shut it down because of dust pollution, which we've already proved that as BS, basically, trying to figure out a polite way to say it. So had the Scripps Institute come in, they tested a beach over in Greece, which has no off-roading, has no vehicles running on it, and it was the same exact PM10 measurements over in Greece it is at Pismo.
Yeah.
Another one that was crazy is, if you want to look back, when COVID happened, they shut the park down. So they have these measuring devices. So these measuring devices picked up higher concentrations of PM10, which is supposed to be the pollution measurement, when the park was closed.
That's crazy.
So
it's this thing called the wind, people. You know what I mean? It's not that difficult to
the definition of sand is moving particles. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller as it gets away.
Right.
And then wouldn't have anything to do with the developer that removed the rows and rows and the thousands of eucalyptus trees that had the natural filter to keep the dust out of the houses of all the people that are saying that moved into these houses that are saying they're getting sick now because of the off-roaders. So that's kind of what their whole basis was from all this craziness.
That's so crazy. I mean, to think of the idea that, like, first off, the off-road park was there before you moved there, right? And secondly, like, I've been up there and ridden there, and there's days where, like, you can't ride because of the wind, just like Glamis, right? So the volume of sand that's moving during, a windstorm compared to what we're causing in off-road is uncomparable.
Not even comparable. It's and all those homeowners had to sign acknowledging that there was an off-road park there.
Yeah.
It's like the people that move next to an airport and then complain about the noise from airplanes and things like
Correct.
that. You bought a house next to an airport.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
So where all this is going with Pismo, don't know. It's in the courts. The motions that have been going back and forth for a couple years now that are finally getting to the court case being heard.
Yeah.
So until, motions are heard, motions are moved forward, what they're going to do, it's a big unknown. There's multiple layers of lawsuits that have been filed there from, Friends of Oceano and then Ecologic that we're just going to have to see where it goes.
Sure. Well,
I mean, we all know what we want. I mean, look back in the day when they had the southern entrance that was there. Guadalupe was a thriving little town. There was a couple great little restaurants that I remember, younger going to.
Sure.
Just how much they've cut it back. I mean, their wind fencing is criminal, what they've done. They put snow fence up all over the place to cut down the dust, which has created a whole nother mess. The new thing that's going on right now is they go and shred hay bales and cover the sand. Then they go out and plant plants in it and try to keep it moist. If it grows in that hay bales, they can then fence it off to say it's an enclosure. So the hay that they just shredded and put everywhere was infested with earwigs and other bugs. So all the campers that were down there, and this just happened, all the campers that are down there have their RVs and everything just completely infested with all these bugs that are all over their vehicles.
That's crazy.
And this is just something just in the last couple of weeks that have gone down. So they're bringing non-native bugs and non-native hay and spreading it all over the dunes to say that they're helping the environment or protecting the dunes.
Isn't it crazy? My biggest pet peeve in the area that we operate them in is solar panels, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, people, I'm not anti-solar panel, but put the solar panel on your roof, right?
Yeah.
Don't put it in the desert. What blows me away is, like, we have solar farms in areas of the Mojave Desert that have high concentration of animal life, including turtles. So what do you think happens when they plaster that area with panels? What do you think they do? They bulldoze it and kill all that vegetation, and they kill all that animal habitat, and it does not return. So this idea that somehow that's environmentally friendly is just horseshit.
We can't ride there, but they can bulldoze it, level it, and put solar panels in.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's always what's got me.
And in particular, I've spent a lot of time around the solar farms that were supposed to be the super solar farms right there on State Line. And, every 15 minutes, a bird flies into the heat pattern, the heat signature, lights on fire and drops. So they're killing birds. Now, on top of that, that area has become infested with coyotes because they have food falling out of the sky, right? It's like a cartoon, You roll over there and you're like, what is going on,
Well, we've been riding for a long time in SoCal. The Palm Springs area had a ton of riding years ago that are now infiltrated with windmills.
Yes.
And if you go near those windmills on the ground, let alone just plowed, leveled, the exhaust, the emissions, the oil, and all the crap that comes off those windmills is all over the ground, completely polluting the ground.
Yeah.
It's a freaking mess around all those windmills that we were kicked out of.
Yeah, have you ever seen where they bury the parts afterwards?
Yes.
That's crazy. So for people out there who don't know, like, once you build a windmill, it has a lifespan, and then after that lifespan's done, it's trash.
Yeah. That fiberglass blades.
Yeah, so then they have to put those somewhere. So, out in that area, there's a couple areas where they've created these giant landfills of this material that will never break down in thousands and thousands of years, right? But it's still environmentally sound somehow.
Oh, man.
But we'll keep fighting the good fight because we're fighters, right?
Yes.
You know?
We got to.
That's the thing I love about this culture and this community. Is like, I'm like, oh, man, you guys picked the wrong guys to mess with.
Yeah, we love where we go. We enjoy the hell of it. We want to keep it clean and preserve it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm enjoying and getting humbled on doing the fight with the ASA. I'm enjoying getting out with other like-minded people and other like-minded groups and supporting those other guys along with, we need support and then the other off-road advocates need support to be able to keep what we like doing and what we like enjoying going.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Dave, well, I think we're going to wrap up here. Matt, it's been a fun show.
No, thanks for having me.
Couple hours here, but big thanks to Kawasaki for allowing us the space here. And, Dirt Expo, it's been fun. Awesome event. Anybody that didn't make it out, definitely come out next year.
Good show. Good show. I love the facility here. This is an amazing place.
Awesome. In the middle of a football stadium. We were talking about it earlier. It's pretty rad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was raining outside earlier. We're all dry in here, so that's
all
always
that
a nice thing.
field that's outside has got to get all that water.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it doesn't rain often in Arizona, so that thing's soaking it in. But signing off here from the Dirt Expo with Kawasaki here on the Gentle Tire Jim Beaver Show.
That's a wrap for this edition of the Gentle Tire Jim Beaver Show with Brittany Cardone. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and follow Jim Beaver 15, B Cardone 15, and Jim Beaver Show on social media. We're also on the web. Hit us up at jimbeaver15.com for all the latest. We'll see you next time.